So hello again, everyone, and welcome to our last session of Claris Engage 2020, Day 1. Again, I'm Janine Campbell, and I've been your co-host with my colleague Rosemary Tigi for the day, and we're really thrilled that you could join us again, if you're coming back, for this final panel discussion of the day, Developers Making a Difference, moderated by our own Andrew LeCates. But before we get started, I'd like to run through some WebEx tips. And for those of you who have been joining us throughout the day, thanks for your patience as we go through these again with all of you. But we do recommend that for the best experience today, that you listen using your computer audio. If you have limited bandwidth, you are able to dial in via the telephone numbers that are made available by WebEx. You can find those via the audio options. There's 3 little dots at the bottom of the WebEx window. If you select that and you select audio connection, you can dial in via a telephone number. We also are aware of some bandwidth issues for some users related to video, so dialing in may also be helpful for you in those scenarios. And again, we thank you for your patience, as this is our first virtual conference using WebEx. Finally, if you have any technical support issues and need to contact WebEx for any additional help, we've included the WebEx technical support phone numbers in the chat in the side panel of this WebEx window. Additionally, we do also recommend that if you are able, you shut down any other applications that may draw bandwidth to ensure the best experience with WebEx today. And finally, to ensure and minimize distraction for our panelists, we have disabled the chat feature. So I know that many of you, however, will want to ask questions, and we will do our best to reserve time at the conclusion of this discussion to take some questions from the audience. To do that, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to hover over the little circle of the question mark in the center of your WebEx window to activate the WebEx Q&A panel. And when you're in that panel, you can submit a question directly to me. I would ask that you send your questions directly to me, and then I will then pass your questions along to our moderator, Andrew, and we will do our best, as I said, as time allows, to accommodate a few questions from the audience at the conclusion of today's panel discussion. And so with that, I have one more housekeeping item, and that involves the way that you can view the panelists today. That is really up to you, and I wanted to point out how you do that in WebEx. So as you can see, you can view in a grid view like you're seeing on the screen, but if you'd like to see one individual talking at a time, there is a circle with 4 squares in it at the top right of the WebEx window. You simply hover over that circle and click it, and you can change the view of the panelists at any time. So it is entirely up to you, and you can have it the way you want for this session. All right, and with those tips out of the way, it is my great pleasure to introduce my very good friend and colleague, Andrew LeCates, to lead this incredible discussion with some experts from our community on how developers make a difference. Andy, take it away.
Thank you, Janine. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to be here for this this panel. I've been, I guess, lucky this year that for the first event in 25 years that I've actually been able to attend the sessions and listening to the panels we've had so far, and I think it's been fantastic. I've also been back channel texting hundreds of you today, and I really appreciate the support in your being here throughout what is a pretty long day. And I have to call out as well that, as many of you probably know, we've had a tropical storm, knee hurricane that's been going up the east coast of the U.S., and that's been affecting some people, like poor Ronnie on the last session and poor Julie last night. So thank you for bearing with us through some of the hardships and making this all work and come together so well. But as I said, this session is something I have a real passion for, and I think it follows a little bit from the keynote segment that I had this morning, right? It's about the strength of this community and the great work over the years that this community has done to make a real positive impact on the world. I've been proud to be a member of this community for decades, and I've been in recent years sharing more stories about some of the great works that you've been producing out there for various agencies around the world that needed help. Our guests here today represent some of the amazing community members that exemplify, I think, the strength of this community. We have Julie Sigfrinius, who's my great friend and I think the hardest working person at Claris. who's been spearheading our Claris Covid Relief initiative. We've got Makah and Encarnacao from Soliant, who I shared a story about her a few years ago, working with the Luke Commission in Africa and doing great work there. And so I'm really pleased to have her join us. And Nic Friedman from the ALS Never Surrender Foundation, that is really advancing the data capture and science around the study of ALS as a disease. So what a great panel, and thank you all for being here today. I want to start, I think, yeah, as I said this morning, COVID is kind of the sea we're swimming in right now. It's the thing that is kind of impacting us all, and the likely culprit we should talk about first, right? And Julie, you've been, as I said, spearheading our effort at Claris, and I give a very brief overview of kind of how we kicked off that project, but I think it would be great for us all to hear from you, really the provenance of the CCRT project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. And Andy, I just want to start by saying that I really still miss you. And let's get going. So, yeah, how this Claris COVID Response Team evolved was pretty amazing. Brad, it really had this concept sort of evolve in his head. And I got a call, and I did volunteer and said I would love to help in what this cause was, and that was maybe like on a Friday. And then Brad was like, well, let's talk about this on a Saturday. I mean, we were moving quickly. Saturday, I think what happened is we created a charter, we created our rules of engagement, the basic principles, and then we met with Makah and the Join Table team, and bam, Sunday we had our first client that we were working with, and we were off and running. And inside of 1 week of time, we created the Claris COVID Response Team. We had no structure, we had no intake form, we had no policy, we had no volunteers, we had no software, we had no people. And yet we knew that there were needs out there. And I think that's what drove every single person on this team to do what they did. And it is probably for me one of the most satisfying things I've ever been able to be a part of. I'm honored to work with every single partner and volunteer and Join Table and the leadership of Claris and all of that to have done what we've done thus far, and we're not done yet. And before I turn it back to you, because I'm sure you have questions, I do want to call out, there were a lot of people that had full-time jobs at Claris that I tapped on their shoulder and asked them if they would jump in and help. And no one said no. And that's Marie Normand, that's Mia Roop, that's Tyler Furman, that's Sam Fong, that's Sophia Andrade, that's Brandon Hare, it's everybody in operations. There were so many people at Claris that had plenty on their plate to do, and we had to figure it out along with Join Table and get this done, and they're all heroes.
Right on. Yeah, I think we clearly were motivated, but I think we also knew that we could get some stuff done because of the community, right? And I think, as you said, the first step was engaging with Join Table, and Makah is our representative from Join Table. Mm-hmm. Makah, I'd love to hear your perspective on it. From the standpoint of, this community's willingness to really step up and participate. Yeah. We're all driven to want to make a difference, but can you tell me about that first week and the volunteers coming in and how it impacted your work at Join Table?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Well, so for those of you who don't know what Join Table is, I'll kind of give you a little background on what we are. We're essentially an organization started by myself, Chris Kubica, and Jonathan Nicoletti, and the three of us kind of came together with the same idea that we'd love to have a way for the community to be able to give back, do pro bono work for nonprofits. So we had already been in existence for about a year before the Claris COVID Response Team was initiated, and yeah, so I can give you some numbers about like just what that meant for Join Table. We within that year span, we had about 30 volunteers, and we had a couple projects already in the works, and about 800 pro bono hours. A day after, so 24 hours after that blog post came out, we more than doubled to 70 volunteers. So I think there was a huge like outpour from the community saying like, I want to help. So, and we had 1,800 hours pledged to help. And then a whole week after that, we had we increased by 5 times. So we went to 180 volunteers within a week, which was insane. Over 5,000 hours pledged. And then to date, and thanks to your little shout out in the keynote, we got some volunteers today. So these numbers have increased, which was really awesome to see. So we're currently at about 230 volunteers, which is about a sevenfold increase from where we started. And we have about 7,000 hours pledged. So just the outpour from the community willing to help. And I think this really speaks to COVID. Like just, we're all kind of stuck at home and we can't really go out and we feel helpless. We feel like we can't do anything like to fight it. And like, here's an opportunity. Claris provided this opportunity to help combat it. And people wanted to be soldiers. They wanted to fight in this opportunity. So I think that's what really speaks to the community. Everyone just willing to jump in and help with this effort.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've had so many of these stories, right? But when you have a crisis that's so acute, I think we all get in that place where it's like, what can I do, right? And you just want the opportunity to help. When I shared the story at DevCon a year or two ago about being involved post 9/11 to help with some of the recovery effort work, and I remember when my boss called me on that, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I had to think about it. I had a wife and 2 very small kids at home, and I wasn't sure that I really wanted to leave, but it was like, hell yeah, let's go, right? I mean, and so I picked up and I drove, 11 hours to get to a place to start doing some work. And it was just like, you had a chance to do something. There was a catharsis, there was a purpose, it was the right thing. And so I think COVID has a similar, maybe aligning power, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave Nic out of the conversation too long. So I'd like to, Nic, I think I asked you here coming from a different space a little bit, right? ALS Never Surrender started before the pandemic, of course, but I suspect you had a similar moment of motivation. And so I wonder if you wouldn't give us a little bit of the backstory on how the foundation came to be and what you're doing.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And first, I want to shout out to Makah and her team. They've honestly even helped us at the ALS Never Surrender Foundation in the early phases when we were looking at this. So thank you guys very much for that, and thanks to all the people that donate time and pledge hours, because they are going to very good causes, right? That really need your help. I'm a co-founder at the ALS Never Surrender Foundation, and I was there to support our primary founder, who was Steph Corden. And Steph was an IT professional, and he worked in the space, and he had a lot of different people that he knew at Claris and throughout different companies in this ecosystem that you guys are talking about. And about 6.5 years ago, almost 7 years ago, he got diagnosed with ALS. And I think most people know about ALS from the Ice Bucket Challenge. And when you think about like these things, these outcries from the community of support, and Ice Bucket Challenge was a non-technical version of that, you see everyone kind of coming around an idea, right, to support something. And from an IT perspective, when Steph got ALS, he was trying to figure out, well, what does this disease mean? And there's so little we knew about it. They didn't know how much time he had, what progression would look like. And from a data perspective, he said, I don't have an ALS problem. ALS has a data problem, and we're going to solve it. So that's really when he got together with the idea of the Filemaker platform with Claris, and really built out a platform to collect data points specifically for that. And that's when we got introduced to Makah and her team. And they've been so gracious in their support, and it's just been a wonderful experience.
Hearing you say that, you had mentioned this to me before, and it brought to memory for me a very visceral memory of when I went up to Somerset County, Pennsylvania, to the Flight 92 crash site. And the work we were doing was fairly grim. It was really sobering. And as we were going in there, the consultant that we were working with was kind of explaining what to expect, but he made a comment there as to tell us this is going to be grim work, but you have to remember it's a data problem, right? And it kind of centered everything, because I was a data guy, and I was there with my friend Bill Heiser, and he was a data guy. And so we were instantly, it's like, okay, we can do this, right? So I get it, man. I think we're all solving problems, but we're doing it with data innovation, right? It's what we're about. So I thank you for that. So the ALS Never Surrender Foundation, let's drill in on data for a second, because I think you've told me how prior to the foundation developing its app, its software, the data was really sparse, and now it's getting better. Can you tell us about the evolution of that a little bit?
Sure. ALS, and there's a lot of motor neuron diseases out there, but ALS affects only around 250,000 people globally at any one time. And so they call it an orphan disease. So it wasn't something that people put a lot of time into. We have to think there's 250,000 families, friends, networks, coworkers, right? We're talking millions upon millions of people affected. And when our founder, Steph, went to his doctor, he's like, okay, what can I do? They said, well, you can show up every quarter to your neurologist appointment, and they're going to ask you 12 questions. And they're going to rate you 0 to 4. How are you able to hold a utensil? How are you able to feed yourself, swallow, walk, sleep, go upstairs, etc.? About 12 questions. And those are 12 data points from 0 to 4. So what Steph did was, he made a mobile application on the Claris Filemaker platform to move that to collect 80 data points every week from every patient. And they could do this at home. And where we're at now is we've integrated a few third-party platforms, and we're leveraging the Claris FileMaker server solution so that we can collect now over 1 million data points per week, per patient, at home, anywhere in the world. They don't have to be available to go into a clinic, and they don't have to be able to travel very far, which affects those patients' lives. So, the goal is, to move from 12 data points once a quarter to 5 million data points in a week, which is what we're hoping to reach in our next version. Currently, we're a little over 1 million data points a week today. So it's been a big impact.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And it's also objective versus subjective data points, right?
Yeah, right. They're all functional measurements, right? Range of motion
Right.
in your arms, dexterity using the touch screen, the gyroscopes of the phones themselves, versus someone asking you a few questions and them rating it. It's a great point, Micah. Makah. So the main thing, what we've done with all of this, we didn't know what we were doing. Quite frankly, we're data professionals. We were trying to collect data and get it in the hands of researchers. We are effectively turning a 24-month clinical trial to 6 months.
Wow. That's insane.
And that's a big deal, right? I mean, to reduce that time, that's time that those patients don't have, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the average, I think over 80% of people, once you get diagnosed with ALS, pass away within 5 years. They say 3 to 5 years. 90% don't make it 6 years. Steph, our founder, while he did pass away about a year ago, when he made it to 6 years, he's like, I'm at 90%. Just the attitude that he had was just, and we used to ask him, like, hey, did ALS really, what did it take away from you? And long story short, some people say ALS stands for always losing something. Steph said it stood for always learning something and another life saved. He said, hey, we all have to leave, but I get to leave and provide value to save people's lives, right? So when you think about that short time frame, taking 18 months off a trial, it really means a lot to those people.
Yeah. What a terrific motivator to have somebody with that leadership, right? Who's clearly in the middle of it, but also just can have the right perspective. I hope we get to come back and talk a little bit more about the ways you're engaging technology to deliver on all that data, and maybe a little bit about how it's advancing the science. But before we get too far away from it, that's a fantastic use case. I shared a couple of other ones this morning, right? The work that Soliant Digital did for London Ambulance Service was really quite remarkable. I saw people commenting while the presentation was happening about the quality of that work, the design, as well as its functionality. And the scale is impressive. What I didn't mention, I think, in the recording was that it is being used by somewhere around 3,500 to 4,000 devices by the London Ambulance Service, but I believe Soliant has also provided the solution to hospitals around the UK. And so there's upwards of 10,000 users of that platform right now. So that's making a big impact on that country and that community. And I think, Makah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a city in the U.S. that we're not allowed to name. They've asked us explicitly not to. Yeah. But we had the very same problem. It's one of the biggest American cities, and in their pro basketball stadium, they were storing all their PPE, and the fire workers would have to go in there and sort through it. Can you tell us just a little bit about the use case and the solution that was built there?
Yeah, so yeah, they were but just storing, they had piles of PPE and equipment and things like that. They were just storing in basically using a stadium as a warehouse. So that was actually a project that Soliant Consulting took on, and Graham Young and Josie Graham totally knocked it out of the park. They basically what they started with was filling out a form on paper. So okay, so let's say a funeral home comes to the stadium and they say, okay, I need I need 12 masks or something like that for the week. They would fill out a form, and then like a volunteer firefighter would take that and bring them over to the pile, see if they have it, and then hand that form off to another volunteer firefighter who was, at a Google Sheets laptop and just filling everything out by hand. And so what Team Graham did over at Soliant was made everything available on the iPhone, so it was super easy to select. And the biggest value I think that they got out of it was the charting. Like they can see their burn down rate. They can see like, okay, this is going low, or these requests, the request for this is going up, and we need to get more of that source. So they did an awesome job, and they're really happy with that product.
And Julie, I know that the COVID response team, I think I mentioned you expanded the team both internally and bringing in some partner council members to help, but we've been getting more use cases as well. We've got contact tracing and remote medical services. And can you give us a little more perspective on the kind of work that's being done?
Sure. We did kind of an evolution. So we needed to add more resources because as we were continuing to evolve, we were sort of building the plane as we were flying it. We found that we started with requests coming in from everywhere of needs, and we vetted those as fast as possible, got teams on them, and started rolling, and everything that was custom work. Then what we had when we went out for a call for volunteers in our partner community, we had many partners that came and said, well, I probably have this piece of code or I have this app that I'll give you, you could reuse it. And so then we had to create a repository of things that we could reuse, and we needed a resource for that. So we brought Jordan Watson on to help us do that and put him to work creating that. And then we needed to document those tools so that we could repurpose them anywhere else in the world. And so we had teams, the Join Table put together to make that happen. And then it evolved further where as we've progressed in this pandemic, now it's on to more education and contract tracing and those kinds of things. But the partners, they heard of a need and they would even reach out. We had as many partners reach out to us saying, I have a customer that needs this. I need to get a team. We need to create this. And it was everything from, you can't go see your dentist anymore, but if your tooth breaks, how do you interface with your dentist and get emergency dental care? Or a neighborhood that has elderly people, how do they get their dog walking done or their grocery store trips in the midst of lockdown? Or there was a hospital in Belgium that had a COVID triage procedure stuck on a wall in one room, and the staff was having to run in and do like 5 steps of the triage, do it, and then come back and get their next steps. And that was sort of evolving over time. We had a partner that created a solution in less than a day that they could have on iPad that was there. It's incredible. This was a complete combination of existing partner ecosystem that is the most giving community I've ever been involved with in my life, and a tool set that we happen to have at Claris that is very fast to develop in. And those two things coming together, the fact that we had an ecosystem and we have tools that are fast, made this so that we could respond in some amazing ways. I don't know. Makah, I'm sure I've missed like 20.
Well, I will say, some of our volunteers are actually have some recorded kind of demos and walkthroughs of their apps for the library. So check that out too, because we've asked some of them to kind of show us what they built and any cool tricks that they have in there.
And Mark, I know we might get some questions at the end, but I saw one that popped up basically asking, is there a forum where volunteers can essentially get to know each other? Is our hub a website platform where developers willing to do work can be made aware of each other and what they're doing? Does Join Table essentially provide that, or can you explain a little bit about the mechanics there?
Yeah, well, I love that idea. So what we do offer at Join Table, so if you go to jointable.org and you sign up on our website to be a volunteer, we do ask you questions like what kind of projects do you want, what nonprofits do you care about? And one of the things we ask, like, do you want to work on a team? Do you want to work by yourself? Do you want to be a mentor? Do you want to be like a lead and just make sure you want to be a QA person? So we have the ability for you to work on a team if that's not something that you do normally and you want to give that a try. It's kind of a cool way to do it. But as far as getting to know each other, no, we don't have anything like that in place. But if you're interested in starting something, reach out to me. Jointable.org contact. Yeah, maybe we can start like a little subcommittee for getting to know each other volunteer.
I like it. Awesome. Julie, you made the comment about the sort of intersection of the community and the platform, and it reminds me of kind of the equation that we promote, the notion of problem solver plus platform plus ecosystem, right? Is our success equation, and I think it really comes out here. And I had I got some interesting feedback online about the quote that COVID has accelerated some mandates, right? Which I don't know, I just love the way that's said, and I think it's real though. I think people are not just being instantly motivated to help, but the urgency has grown. And so actually I kind of want to turn it back, Nic, to you, because we talked a couple weeks ago and you were talking about two things. The need to respond is maybe the time frames are shortening, but also there's a willingness to innovate that's broader right now, right? And to take chances, to get things done. Can you give us your perspective on that and the customers or agencies that you're working with?
Yeah, happy to. Julie said something I want to highlight on. It's about the ecosystem that we've seen grown, and it's also created an ecosystem that was almost not there before in the motor neuron disease clinical community. And historically speaking, as we said, you'd have neurologists assessing these patients in clinic, and with all the training that they have, I mean, they're all PhDs and very, knowledgeable in their areas. But we've been trying to bring mobile app technology to them. I mean, Steph was trying to get it out there for the past 5 years. And there was a slow adoption rate because, when you think about technology, if anything's not more than 10% innovative, there's no value there to switch. And if anything's more than 20% innovative, it's too far advanced and it's too much of a change from what people are doing today. And so what we saw was, the past 5 years, we've been trying to get the mobile app solutions into the hands of the patients and the data into the hand of neurologists and the data scientists. And they were just like, well, we're okay with what we're doing right now, right? A few of the leading adopters of technology were very excited about it, but it was far and few between. Unfortunately, since COVID hit, a lot of these patients who are immunocompromised, really can't go into the clinics. And we've seen an explosion of a community in the motor neuron disease space, specifically with neurologists saying, okay, we're ready. Give it to us. What can we do? And as we're starting to show them what they can do with technology in the hands of patients at home, and then assessing that data through once we transmit that data to them, they're seeing a huge explosion in it, right? So when you think about the environments that have been created because of the current landscape and the circumstances we're in, we're seeing new communities create that weren't there before. And we're getting, when you look about PhDs in particular in the motor neuron disease space, a lot of people in the research space want to keep the information to themselves, right? That's how you publish, that's how you get funding, that's how you stay alive in the community, stay relevant. Well, now we're seeing more collaboration than we've ever seen in this space. Companies that you would never think that would work together, happy to work together now. And we're doing so, as you mentioned, with the center being the platform.
Oh, Andy.
Andy, you might be on mute.
Yeah, we don't hear you, Andy.
My bad. I'm sorry. I hit the other mute button. Thank you. But I mentioned this morning the sort of driver that COVID is for innovation, and that I'd seen this analyst webinar regarding 90% of execs know that their business is fundamentally changing. Only 21% feel they're ready. But there were some other interesting data points in there going back to prior business crisis, right? Back in 2008, when we had the financial crisis going on, the analysis was that companies that innovated through the crisis led their marketplace after the crisis, right? And so, taking advantage of the time of opportunity is maybe a good thing, right? That investment. We're really trying to double down on innovation at Claris right now. A lot of our customers are doing that. And so I suspect, Nic, that as it's accelerating the way you're able to adopt technology, that's going to pay off in the long run, right? I mean, you're trying to get to 5 million data points. How do you get there? You have these new investments happening. Is that fair?
It's very fair. And, what we're seeing is, when we talk about people donating their time in the community, when we think about that Ice Bucket Challenge and everyone donated money and they raised hundreds of millions of dollars, we're funded by them, right? So the ALS Association actually funded a lot of that. And what we're seeing is they funded hundreds of trials, and a lot of those were put on hold or slowed down because of the current circumstance. So we're being reached out to by these people saying, hey, we'd like to use this technology. Have you thought about, mobile EGGs? Have you thought about this third-party device or that third-party device and integrating it? And we were like, no, we hadn't thought about that. And they said, we'd love to get that data aggregated into a platform. So we're using Claris Connect and a few other solutions to really bring that data into a holistic perspective to get all of it in the hands of the researchers. And they're just more excited to do it than ever, and it's becoming an enabling solution for the community to grow, and it's just been great.
Right on. Where should we go next? There's some more things I want to ask you, Nic, but I don't want to avoid our other great panelists here. I think we talked a little bit about Julie and Makah, specifically COVID, but well, let's stop here. COVID is an ongoing concern. You said it, Julie, right? We're not out of the weeds on this one. So the COVID response initiative continues, yes?
Yes, this is true.
Yeah. And if someone wants to volunteer or has a problem that needs solving, could you share with us basic instructions of how to get involved?
Sure. Very easily, you can go to the Claris blog, and we have the instructions on how you can reach out for volunteer, and it's got the link to go to Join Table, or Janine, if you want to put a chat for everyone, a Join Table link. We can certainly do that. So what it is, it's a form. It's an intake form that we do so that we can sort of vet what the circumstances and what we're trying to do in terms of the Claris COVID response is it's got to be something that's directly related to the pandemic or the management of the pandemic. So that's healthcare. Education's a hot one right now with kids, and what are kids going to do going back to school? And there's zillions of needs there. So that's very, very timely. Disaster response, recovery. There's all kinds of things that are sort of evolving. Unfortunately, since this pandemic is lasting a while, and I think that this is not even when this pandemic goes away, I think we're going to continue to coexist in this way as a community and address because there's always going to be needs and there's always going to be things that we can do. And I think we have recognized that this community has the opportunity to make a difference with the tools that we have right now. And so I don't really ever want it to stop. I don't know, Makah, if you do, but I don't.
Well, I have two little responses to that. One thing I saw in the chat, someone asked a question like, does it have to be English? I do want to point out that we have volunteers from all over the world. We have projects from Italy, France, India, and I want to give a shout out. We got a dentist from France who needed help. We actually didn't have any volunteers from France, and we were looking through our list, but luckily we had Vehicle Media from Canada, and they were French speaking, and they did an amazing job helping the dentist in France. They actually donated over 500 hours to this dentist in France, which was amazing. We had several projects come in from India, and a Medisys software was like, give them all to us, we'll take whatever. They were willing to do more than one project. So yeah, so lots of, it was a total global reach. So if that's a question, that was that. I kind of wanted to touch also on, Julie, you said, you know, there's always going to be a problem. Kind of brings me to another issue that Join Table has been talking about, and we feel like right now that COVID is not the only crisis going on in the community, and so us at Join Table, our hearts really hurt for the unfair treatment of people of color right now, and so we really want to participate in the fight against racial injustice. So I'm actually, we are in talks with Women Innovating Together, and we would like to create a new initiative. And it is for basically career development programs for underrepresented groups in tech. So that would really be the Black community, Hispanic community, Native cultures, women, and the LGBT community. And really our goal is to provide mentorship, training, resume review, assistance, internship connections, job connections, anything we can really do to increase diversity in tech. So that's really kind of our next fight that we want to take, you know, after COVID kind of calms down a little bit, if it ever does. And if anyone is interested in participating in that, or if you'd like a leadership role in that, we're definitely looking for any kind of partnership that anybody would like to have with us. And you can just reach out to us at jointable.org and contact.
And
Right on.
along with
Yeah,
that,
I appreciate-
Makah, sorry, apologies. Along with that, you know, Brad announced or reiterated the FDS offer, the FileMaker Developer
Yes.
Subscription offer. This is a perfect combination to get the tools in the hands of somebody that may need to be re-careering, as Makah has teed up. Claris is completely on board with that. So I think, you know, there's a there that's not too far away from taking shape. And if you know of anyone that, you know, may have been displaced, maybe they would be somebody that you're like, gosh, they could be a great developer. They could get into this tech if they just, you know, had a leg up. Now's the time for that. Now's the time for that. And we're ready to try to take that on, because we see that coming as a next wave of problems. The last thing that I wanted to say is, if you as developers, I mean, you're listening to the stories, and I've got to believe I know enough of you that you're like, I've got some ideas. There's nothing, we have a lot of volunteers. Probably right now we're in a position of more volunteers than we have projects, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because we're wasting opportunity. And so if we think that there are some things that we want to tackle, like in the education space, or with, you know, contact tracing, or things that would be a good sweet spot for Claris products, the tool set in combination with the community, let's get that on as a project to consider and get some groups together and start tackling this. There's nothing that says that we can't look at it that way. We're open to that game for sure.
Right on. I wanted to, well, two things. Julie, you mentioned FDS, and that's close to my heart as well. I got to author the blog post we put up on July 1st regarding the program. So for anybody that is interested in referring someone to the free FDS program, just send them to our blog. The information's there. They can sign up. And yeah, that one hit home for me, because I got started 30 years ago, paying my way through college in the summers, learning FileMaker. And it has defined my career since. I've done everything you can do with FileMaker. I've been a user, I've been a developer, I've been a trainer, I've been an author, I've been a sales guy. I've done it all, right? And it's just made such a difference. And, you know, I think Britta, for her part, she saw this as well as a real opportunity for impact. And she was just sharing a story about having reached out to somebody on LinkedIn that she saw that was impacted negatively, was in a transitional phase of their career, needed to start over. And she literally just, you know, pinged them or DM'd them through LinkedIn and said, hey, check this thing out. Why don't you join our community? Why don't you come to Engage? And, you know, I think we're not trying to use this opportunistically as a marketing thing, but there are people out there that need help and they need new work. And, you know, we have the ability to connect them to a technology and a community and the learning materials to get started. So, yeah, I want to echo what you said. Anybody out there that's watching right now, if you see somebody that might benefit from it, where it's relevant, send them in. Let's give them FileMaker and start training them up.
And Women Innovating Together has a great mentorship program that's open to everybody, all genders. You don't have to be a female to be part of it. So if you are starting out and you just want someone to help you if you get stuck, we have a great online community as well, but it's kind of nice to have that one-on-one person you can reach out to.
I appreciate you, Makah, as well, acknowledging and elevating Women Innovating Together. It's been such a fantastic cohort in our community for years now. For the first time in my Engage/DevCon career, I actually joined the coffee meeting this morning. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But a group like that has been giving scholarships to bring people to Engage, to DevCon over the years, that's also been managing events for us, out there in the community and driving, the opportunity. I just, couldn't appreciate Women Innovating Together more. And I think there's so many powerful developers and voices in that group. So yeah, awesome that they're in the fight.
Great.
I think Women Innovating Together, if there's anybody that's listening that's a woman that doesn't have a lot of connections in tech, that group is a great group to go check out. I see that Janine has put it in the chat log.
Yeah.
It's just a great organization, and you will meet so many women that have traversed this technology and carved out some fantastic careers for decades.
Yep,
that you
agreed.
can rely on. Strong organization, and they are so promoting, again, new developers to the community. So the 4 scholarship winners this year, it's sad that we have to wait till next year to be able to meet them, but just great work that WIT-FM does.
And also an opportunity for leadership, like, get a leadership role, even if you're new in the community. We have leadership opportunities. And like you said, like Vanessa, who runs the luncheon, like I would consider her a lifelong friend now, and I had no idea who she was before joining Women Innovating Together. So it's just, you make like really amazing friendships that way too.
Right on. I know we've got like 5 minutes left, and I've been watching the Q&A. And one of them goes to a topic, Nic, that I did want to return to with you a little bit. We talked about innovation and COVID being like a forcing function for it, but you have expanded from 12 questions a quarter to 1 million, targeting 5 million a week or whatever that is. A lot of that, as I understand it, is about engaging other devices. It's IoT, it's integration. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're using the platform to make that happen?
Sure. When Steph first started saying ALS had a data problem, he was like, all right, well, what can I do? And, he wasn't a coder by nature, but he's definitely an IT professional. So he actually taught himself Filemaker and developed the first version of the app himself. And that was just using the iPhone to use the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the touch screen, and the microphone to gather as much data as possible. And as we rolled that out, we started talking to a lot of different neurologists in the field. And as I mentioned earlier, some people were saying, well, what about lung function? How can we gather that? So we started looking out, we tested a bunch of home spirometers and found the most accurate one and integrated that. So people can, rather than going into a clinic to test lung function, they grab that, right? And they just
So that's something you could breathe into, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's a home spirometer, right? So I don't have one right here in front of me. I normally do. But yeah, you can test your force and weak vital capacity, the ability to breathe in and to breathe out, and it measures that lung function at home in a clinical quality direction. And then, we're all familiar when you go to the doctor, you have the pulse oximeter they put on your finger to check your heart rate, blood pressure, heart rate, blood perfusion through your body, and oxygenation levels. Well, now we have that at home, and we plug that into the iPhone as well and quickly gather that data. In fact, we have a new version of that people can wear while they sleep. It's pretty much a full hour sleep study, right? Or full night sleep study. And then on top of that, we were talking to a few different doctors, and they said, well, it'd be really great if you could record voices. Can you develop an app that shows someone a picture and they have to describe what happens in that picture, and then we can take that data and take the picture away and have them describe it later? So we started integrating with a few different platforms that were out there to test cognitive abilities. And so we got this, and this is where we're at now, collecting a little over 1 million data points per week. And then we've had some neurologists saying it'd be great to measure acoustic noises in the muscle. When we all move, our muscles make very minute noises, and it's able to test the ability for the muscle to move over time. And so there's EGG machines that you can mobile that you just attach to your body while you're doing your exercises, and it records that data. And we use Claris Connect and open APIs to gather that data, bring it in. We use the FileMaker platform as the primary application to aggregate all of it, and then we push all that data into the FileMaker cloud where we can analyze that data and partition it and normalize it. So having that's where we think we're going to get to. And there's a few other things: the Apple Watch, smart scales at home. There's actually smart insoles you can put in your shoe that don't just track your steps, they track your balance and which pressure point you're standing on your feet, which is muscle control again. So with these next integrations, we're hoping to get to 5 million data points and really show doctors what a patient's circumstances are from the comfort of their own home.
Awesome. It's mind-blowing, right? I mean, you think about how we're transitioning away from, the era of human interaction with a device through a screen to now, this ambient data collection in this fashion, and it's just so powerful, right? This is the data transformation that we talk about. So congrats and amazing work.
Oh,
I have two very important. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say without Makah and her team, right? We really hit a point at one point, hit a wall at one point, saying how do we do the rest of this? And luckily, Claris was able to make some introductions to Makah and her team and some of the other volunteers, and really helped us get over a few hurdles and able us to keep going. So thank you guys again very much for everyone who volunteers for all the different solutions out there that need support.
In our final 20 seconds, Makah, I saw a question come in from Australia, and I know that they've been up all night. It's the morning time down there, but are there any join table or CCRT opportunities down there yet? Do you know any developers volunteering in Australia? Any
we definitely have, I think we have volunteers. We haven't had any requests to come out of there, but aren't they good with COVID? They're an island. I thought, well, maybe I'm thinking of New Zealand. I know New Zealand is.
Oh, you provincial American. What are you talking about? They're struggling down there.
Oh, are they? Shoot.
Yeah.
You can edit this out later, right?
Right on. So the answer is let's find them. Let's find those.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I think that's the other call out to the community too. And I think Julie, you mentioned this is, if you see a need, reach out. Mark Richmond, who's part of the team, he saw a need at the gym, his gym, and they needed contact tracing. And so he talked to them, his hairstylist. He talked to them and said, I know you guys need to contact trace. Do you have something? And they're like, no. And he's like, let me help you. And that's something that Mark's working on and hopefully we'll make available soon publicly. But yeah, if anyone sees a need out there, feel free to reach out to us, to introduce them to us, or have them reach out to us directly. We're happy to talk to them about how we can help.
Awesome. Well, guys, we are out of time, and I just want to thank everyone. Nic, I'm seeing chat messages come up and various things that I'm watching today, and your story is just so inspiring. It's amazing and really thought-provoking, and really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Julie, I just want to say the work that you're doing on behalf of Claris, I know it's so much of your time and nights and weekends, but it's making a difference, and we're just proud to work with you. And Makah, the success, the growth of Join Table, I think we can all be really proud of, and so we really appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.